this was meant to be somewhat interactive or very interactive, so it was actually meant to be a matter of getting your feedback from what you heard during the debate and seeing if we can further boost the arguments that Brother Hamza provided. He did a wonderful job. He is such a wonderful guy and did a wonderful job. And certainly he is very well versed in multitudes of disciplines that makes him the suitable candidate for such debates. But certainly he did not have enough time to provide all the arguments or to rebuttal all the misconceptions that were presented by Dan Barker. So here we do have a little bit more time. It's in like an extension of the debate. So we may be able to provide a little bit more of an argument on our side. So what do you think the one thing that was strongest argument made by Dan Barker that needed some more clarification or some more? Yes. Brothers, can you come closer? Why are you? Yeah, I don't know why. That's the sunnah, by the way. And Sahaba radhiyallahu anhum used to sit next to each other because physical proximity brings about emotional proximity. So, Abu Imran, yeah.
He was claiming that we're saying two of the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just, and on the other side, He is merciful. How we get combining both of those attributes, that He is just, that means He has to be fair in all His judgment at the day of judgment. On the other side, He's merciful, He's going to let other people go. So how justice goes with mercy here?
Okay, well, this actually was one of his bigger failures because he made his own definition of justice and mercy, claimed a conflict between the two definitions, and forced a conclusion on us. So his definition of mercy was lesser punishment. Lesser punishment. And actually I tried to go down and talk to him a little bit, but he wasn't really very receptive. And that's the one thing that I started with, which is this conflict between justice and mercy that he made up. So I asked him what is his source for the definitions, and he said that it's obvious. I said to him, that's not an answer of an academician. There's nothing like, obvious. You have to tell us what is your source. Is this like a Webster dictionary? Should we pull it out and from Webster dictionary, or where's the definition so that we can know your source? And then he said, well, that's the definition and so on. But at any rate, I told him, but if that is really the definition, then it is a little problematic, because the definition of mercy is lesser punishment, that is still punishment. So if punishment is the counterpart of mercy, then you can't have the counterpart as part of the definition. It just doesn't work like this. So if mercy equals lesser punishment, then mercy entails punishment, some degree of punishment, which is still problematic, because you made the antonym of mercy part of its definition. But at any rate, if they're really opposite, then mercy would mean no punishment whatsoever. But let's say mercy means no punishment. Mercy means no punishment, and justice means just punishment. Mercy means no punishment is flawed because let's say you have two kids. One of them pokes the other one in the eye. If you let that kid get away with poking his brother in the eye, or his sister, or her brother, or his sister, anything, then is that merciful? No, it is not merciful. It is not merciful to the victim, nor is it merciful to the offender, the victimizer. Because if you don't punish the victimizer now, he will repeat the offense again and again, and it will become a habit. And if he does not get any form of deterrence, then he will actually become more and more of a criminal. So the severity of punishments is not only merciful to the society, but it is also merciful to the potential criminals, because many potential criminals will not lead a life of criminality if they fear the punishment, if the severity of punishments deterred them. In fact, this was because everything was difficult today. I didn't get the PowerPoint, but I think the PowerPoint should be online. It's on my website. It's under Sharia and Health. On my website, it's a PowerPoint under Articles, PowerPoint, Sharia and Health. And if you go closer to the end, you'll find slides on the deterrence theory and the severity of punishment as an integral part of the deterrence theory. And these are meta-analytic studies done by, the Center for Policy and Center for Strategic Policies Studies, something of that nature. And they did a meta-analysis of several studies on the severity of punishment versus the likelihood of being caught. In America, they tried to water down the importance of severity of punishment in favor of the likelihood of being caught. So if we have a better police department that is smarter, more efficient, that catches the criminals, and the likelihood of being caught is higher, is what matters in deterring criminality. They try to downplay the severity of punishment. And that is basically just to buy taste, It's not, this is not founded on any studies, not founded on any science. Multitudes of research came out over the last 30 years that showed that this is flawed, that severity of punishment is an important part of the deterrence theory. That deterrence means that it is likely that you'll get caught, yes, but equally important, or maybe sometimes more important, the punishment itself. You see, in Islam, why is it that eating pork is not punishable versus adultery, for instance? Adultery is punishable with a very severe punishment. Fornication is punishable. Adultery, that is married people, committing the crime. Fornication, that's unmarried people committing the crime. There is a difference in punishment, but both punishments are quite severe. Why are they severe? But if you eat pork, you don't get punished.
Because they're affecting the society.
Because they're affecting the society. Yeah. No, it is not just about that. It is basically about why do you need to build a higher fence? Because the temptation past this fence is quite compelling. It's quite high. Who gets really tempted to eat pork, bacon in the morning? Even if you had it before you converted to Islam, and now you walk into the hotel, lobby, and then they have an open buffet and breakfast and so on. Who would get tempted to eat bacon? You've got to have like anyway, some people like it, but at any rate, there is really not much temptation there. So punishment here for fornication is not basically a matter of revenge. It's not Allah taking revenge, because Allah also told us, don't eat pork. But since it is really not tempting, and it is really also not gonna, destroy the structure of the society, then there was no punishment. But riba is also not punishable by a prescribed punishment in Islam, because there is not that temptation. So when you have like a severe punishment for fornication, it is basically to make you reconsider, think about it again, because there is something awaiting you that is severe thereafter. So severity of punishment, this is mercy if you look at the whole picture. Because if your son pokes your daughter in her eye, and you say it is merciful to my son to not punish him, then you're just looking at the now and here and that very individual. When God legislates, He does not legislate for one particular person. He legislates for all of us. So the common benefit is more important than the individual benefit. And it is merciful for the whole society that you get some people punished so that no one thinks about, committing the crime again. And you save a lot of people from a life of criminality. You save a lot of people from a life of criminality. You purify that person. If he repented and he got punished in the dunya, you purified him in the dunya. He may not think again about doing the same crime. A lot of people will get deterred. There are potential criminals that will get deterred from committing the crime. The whole society will feel safer. So to create a conflict between mercy and justice, that is a conflict in his own mind. That is not real, and truth is not real.
How about Brother Hamza's response that it's being merciful and just versus what he was saying?
Infinitely merciful, infinitely just. But again, many Muslim scholars would use infinitely merciful, infinitely just, because He is infinitely merciful, infinitely just. And to punish someone for a crime, because after all, to take it all in consideration, that is the direction of mercy. Mercy and justice go together. They don't go in variant paths. They go together. They're convergent, not divergent. Okay, so yeah.
For the same question, with another answer or another way to say it is that what he's trying to do is compare himself with, or the creation with the Creator, so you can't judge Allah how, because it's
you can't judge the attributes of Allah according to your own standards.
Right.
Yeah, but
if it's infinitely
but
this and infinitely that, then you can't put it down to the creation.
but even then, in this particular case, we're just talking about infinite mercy and infinite justice. And in this particular case, you probably cannot use that argument. It will not go through very well. That you're telling him that for him, mercy and justice are different from mercy and justice as you know them. I think the right argument in this case is to go back at his very flawed conclusion that mercy and justice are self-contradictory. It is flawed. Mercy and justice are not self-contradictory.
He was talking also about.
Sisters also can ask questions of the. Any questions from sisters? Anything that you heard that you want more on? Okay.
Yeah, he was talking about a conflict in Quran, astaghfirullah, that Nar is eternal, and on the other side, the other ayah saying it's going to be for limited time.
Okay. He said that there is a conflict of the Quran that the hellfire sometimes is said to be eternal and sometimes is said to be to infer that it is not eternal. There has been some controversy, by the way, about the issue of the eternity of hellfire. And there are controversy in certain matters pertaining to the interpretation of the text. But this controversy in and of itself, let's say that the hellfire is not eternal. To infer that it is eternal and to make the people believe it is eternal is the right way to deter people from criminality, from vice, from wretchedness, from wickedness, from evil, from everything wrong. Because if people think that hellfire is not eternal, if people believe hellfire is not eternal, then still in the face of strong temptations, they also still say to themselves, well, let me just do this now, and then, one day I'll get out. Just let me live my life, and then I'll go through it. Even if it is like 1,000 years in the hellfire, I'll just go through them, and one day I'll get out. The eternity of hellfire is the ultimate deterrence. Ultimate deterrence for people who believe in the hellfire from all sorts of vice and evil. Now, where is this coming from? Where is the language here causing the two interpretations to be plausible? Because the word khalidin, khulud in Arabic, does not really mean eternity. Even when you say abada, you can find linguistic precedents that abadan khalidin and abadan have been used to refer to a very, very, very long time, like an extremely long time, but not necessarily eternity in the language. Now, when it comes to the Jannah, when it comes to paradise, there is a consensus that is unbreakable, that the Jannah is eternal. When it comes to the hellfire, there have been statements attributed to people of the caliber of Umar ibn Khattab, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, Abu Hurairah, that hellfire is not eternal. Sometimes those statements may not be authentic. When they are authentic, some of the scholars try to reinterpret them to be in agreement with the mainstream Sunni position that the hellfire is eternal. So there is no conflict here between two ayat in the Quran. It's not like when you find in the Bible that it had like 3,000 bathrooms or 5,000 bathrooms. A conflict that is not reconcilable. The issue here is the language used allows room for interpretation. There is no conflict between two verses. The language that is used to refer to the stay in the hellfire leaves some room for interpretation.
Isn't Allah's justice punish those who did, harm or wrongdoers against those who was not able to, for example, those who are wrongdoers and trying to do something harm to people who are weak, even part of Allah's wisdom, because or punish those who did wrongdoers on the weak.
Isn't it Allah's wisdom to punish those who did wrong?
Yes, to those who couldn't defend themselves. So
Oh yes, certainly, certainly. And then here, wisdom will go hand in hand with justice and mercy, because those attributes do not really conflict with each other. They corroborate one another.
And Sheikh, going back to the eternity, hellfire, so actually the verses that he quoted were, it talked about like the punishment of someone who killed a Muslim on purpose. He'll be in the hellfire forever, but then the other ones were for like a short time. So, I mean, what I'm trying to say is that his quotations were off, because that's not where the controversy is.
Yeah, his quotations are off, yeah, certainly, because someone can claim that this is a punishment for a crime that's different from this, and so on. But the whole issue of the possibility of different interpretations resulting in that controversy, even though the majority and mainstream position of Ahl Sunnah is that they are both eternal, but there have been scholars from Ahl Sunnah that said that hellfire is not eternal because of the room in the language, the room here to make that interpretation linguistically.
Okay, so further, what if he says, if it's, astaghfirullah, what if it's from God, then it should have been clear?
If it is from God, it should have been clear.
That's what he was saying.
Well, God created life and death to test us. God created life and death to test us. And there are various forms of testing and trials. تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا. تبارك exalted is he in whose hands is the dominion, and he is capable over all things. He who created life and death to test you. Now the test sometimes can be finer than others. And of the fine testing means that God wants to see if you will, when there is room for interpretation, when there are disagreements. The finer test here is that God wants to see if you follow your desire, because someone tells you halal, someone tells you haram. Let's say it's not about aqeedah, it's about any other issue. One tells you halal, haram, people do this all the time, right? So why didn't God make it, clear, cut and dry? And could he have done it? Absolutely. The scholars say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to make the Quran, each and every verse of the Quran have a single implication that is not controversial. He could have done it, yet Allah wanted to give us a finer test. And this is a test of the heart. Where is your desire? Or what will you eventually favor? Your own desires or his desires? Your wants or his wants? Your will or his will? So those who, get those two different answers, halal, haram, and then they sit down and say, my heart is really not comfortable. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to buy this car, or I'm not going to do that thing, or my heart is not comfortable. Isn't that a higher degree of commitment? It is a higher degree of commitment, because even though you have been given various positions, it is your keen desire to follow what Allah wants, the intent of the legislator, not your own intent, that made you stay away from that thing that you desired. So it is a finer test, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests his servants by whatever he pleases, and those controversies are of his finer test, to see how much you will excel in discovering. It is an act of worship in and of itself, by the way, to exert yourself in discovering his intent. To exert yourself in discovering his intent from the verse or from the hadith is an act of worship in and of itself. In fact, that is the business of the scholars. That is how they make their own assets in the day of judgment. It is ijtihad, exertion. And this exertion sometimes it's a mental exertion, but it could sometimes be more tiresome than physical exertion. In fact, Imam Ibn Taymiyyah used to go to old masajid and make sujood and get his forehead dusty in the old masajid and keep supplicating to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Mu'allim Ibrahim, allimniha, Ya Mufahim Sulaiman, fahimniha. Oh, instructor or teacher of Ibrahim, or oh, you who taught Ibrahim, teach it to me. Oh, you who made Sulaiman comprehend it, make me comprehend it. So that is an act of worship in and of itself. Did you get a laugh at this? He should have taught you to wash your hands. Yeah. So he was trying to say that, if this message is really from God, then your God should have taught you, like something that's beneficial, something, we're human beings, infection control and stuff like that. He should have taught you things that are beneficial, like washing your hands and stuff. So Brother Hamza had fun answering this one. So not only that we wash our hands with the prayers, wash before we eat, we wash with the prayers, we wash our hands enough, I guess.
I guess my comment in that is like, I was like disappointed in him because I thought, when we first came into the debate, he's supposed to be like a scholar, and to like make such a statement, that even someone like really young can answer. I mean, it doesn't say much about his scholarship.
Well, he's not a scholar in Islam, he can say that, but the idea here is if he's coming to a debate, even if you're not a scholar, but don't speak of that which you have no knowledge of. That's the safest thing to do. You don't have to know everything about Islam. That is fine to not know that we were commanded to wash our hands and stuff. Although with wudu and stuff, I think common folks do know that we wash our hands. But anyway, that's still fine. Yet, as a scholar, you should not speak of that which you have no knowledge of. وَلَا تَقْفُ مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٍ. And do not speak of that which you have no knowledge of.
But doing things like that in the debate, he's attempting to reduce his argument to like the absurd, his opponent's argument. So I was hoping he would answer that question because he's showing you willing to answer my stupid questions like you're chasing me. That's a debate tactic. That's all it is. It has nothing to do with scholarship. It has to do with debate technique and trying to reduce your opponent's argument to the absurd, like to a low level.
No, but how is reducing? Dan Barker said that if this is really God, he should have taught you to wash your hands.
So he's posing like an absurd question in hope that the audience will see this person answering his absurd question rather than saying that's an absurd question. That's obvious.
Wow.
Said he's chasing after it. Oh, we do this and then something
Yeah.
debate.
But it made him look bad too.
Because he was wrong.
Yeah, he was completely wrong. But the question that was raised that we probably need to answer is, was it okay for us to invite someone like him to insult, our religion, our God, our messenger, and so on? It's a two-pronged answer here. The first part of it is we didn't invite him to our masjid. We went to the U of M. It's not like an invitation that we extended to him. The second is maybe a lesson to learn for the future, that we should probably have some protocol, agree on a protocol with the people that we will debate with. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَلَا تَسُبُّوا الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ فَيَسُبُّوا اللَّهَ عَدْوًا بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ. And do not insult those whom they worship instead of Allah, lest they will insult Allah. So we should be working to avoid such, eventuality. So in the future, inshallah, it may not be a bad idea, or actually, it is a good idea that we talk to the people about a protocol. And the protocol will just, we will not tell them, don't debate us too hard, or don't bring up any hard arguments or anything. We just ask them to maintain a level of decency that is expected of several people, because he talks about atheists and good manners and good morals, and we're a bunch of good people and stuff like that. And then if you come in the middle of hundreds of people and insult something that is valuable to them, forget about your own belief in its existence or lack thereof, but you insult something that is valuable, that is dear to them, that's cherished by them. It is not good manners. It is not good behavior. It is actually naughty child in elementary school type behavior. So it is not mature. It is just not anything telling of goodness or maturity. So that's that. The third we should probably, the third part is this was meant to be a limited attendance from the Muslim side. And it should have been limited attendance from the Muslim side. Because why would we ask the Muslims to go out and listen to misconceptions? To expose yourself to misconceptions is not really smart. This is like going out in the cold, naked, and you just try to sort of prove your strength. It's wicked, by the way. It could be arrogant, and you could be punished by actually falling for the traps or the misconceptions. So if you go out to the cold, you can actually catch the flu. So it is not particularly a smart thing. Who is invited to go out to those places? People who can be debaters themselves, almost, so that they can sharpen their skills, they can, etc., etc., etc. But to open it to the public involves a degree of risk that we're not gamblers, because the idea here is our interest is the guidance of the people. Our interest is not intellectual gymnastics or to show our intellectual supremacy or to make a great argument. Forget about all of this. Our interest is the guidance of the people. That's why I did tell Brother Hamza this. Some of his answers were particularly philosophical, that did not really hit that, populist intelligence chord that, that lights up something in your mind, in the common folks' mind. There are a lot of common folks. This room was full of common folks that may have not particularly understood much about the logical fallacies that were mentioned in that debate. So the genius of Islam is the simplicity, Because if it is a religion that is meant to address, it is a religion that Allah sent to address the common folk, not necessarily the philosopher. Therefore, some of the answers, there may have been some other answers, like this one about submission, when he said that, the very name of Islam is about submission, and submission is counter to being a free thinker. And it is counter to logic, because logic says that you should be a free thinker, right? So Brother Hamza answered this, and his answers are beautiful, and they're correct. Yet, I would include those answers, particularly for the more, philosophically oriented people in the crowd. But I would make sure that I will get out an answer that will get across to everyone in the room. So Brother Hamza said that you either submit to yourself, submit to your social conditioning, or submit to a higher rational being. What would you choose? That's a nice answer. However, the quicker answer that could have gotten across to people is, you think it is not logical to submit. But a blind man lets a dog guide him across the street. Aboard the aircraft, you have 500 submitters and one person leading them to their destination. The same applies to a surgeon. Once you have known that this is a qualified surgeon and he's telling you the truth, when you are in the OR on the table, you are a submitter. Not only a submitter, you actually give up the very faculty of thinking. You get put under, and then he opens you up. You submit. But you should tell me, you should say to me after this submission thing, you should say to me, so what's the difference between what you're saying now and what the Christians say about faith and logic being two different things, and then you need to accept faith because it is, without particularly using your logic. What's the difference between this type of submission and that type of submission? Two big differences. One, in Islam, no one asks you to submit until you verify. You have verified that this is God, and now you submit to Him. But in Christianity, the way to belief in God, in and of itself, is completely illogical, because it involves believing that 1 + 1 + 1 still equals 1. So Islam doesn't ask you to do this. This is like, in Christianity, it is like submitting to the surgeon without, him having a degree, or having, sometimes you don't see the degree, but you go to the hospital and the nurses are, helping, and this and that, and registration, his name. So you have verified that this is a surgeon, and that is why you submit. Otherwise, you don't let anyone open up your stomach and do surgery on you. So that is the difference. In Islam, the logic will lead you to the door of the most sovereign, to the Lord. Logic will lead you, will help you get there. Once you've gotten there, Islam does not tell you, now give up your logic completely. It tells you, just be mindful of your limitations. Because there is nothing that afterwards, there is nothing there that is completely illogical to the human being. There is nothing that is illogical at all. But logic means what? Is logic relative or absolute? There are two different types of logic. There is the absolute type, which is the whole is bigger than the part. the part must be smaller than the whole, right? The whole of a thing must be bigger than a part of it, or a part of a thing must be smaller than the whole of it. That is called the absolute logic. Absolute logic. And then there is the relative logic. Relative logic changes. 1,000 years ago, had you told people that, one day people would go to the moon, they would have thought you're crazy, or at least insane and crazy. And some people may have thought that you're possessed. Some people may have tried to actually exorcise the jinn out of you. Yeah, slap you on the face, just get you to wake up. But so that was to them illogical, But it is in reality not, because that's relative, that's not absolute. In Islam, there is nothing that will defy the common human logic that people do not disagree over. Once people disagree, then it is not the absolute logic, it's not the common human logic. It is your individual logic. And Islam tells you, be modest in assessing your own individual logic. Because keep in mind that this is not common human logic. Had it been, it would have not been controversial. But the difference is, in Christianity, the very Trinity is counter to common human logic. Because 1 plus 1 plus 1 cannot equal 1. Because when Jesus, peace be upon him, prays to the Father in the heavens, he cannot be the same one in the heavens. He cannot prostrate on earth and be the same one that is hearing the supplications up in the heavens, right? So that is counter to common human logic. That's the absolute logic, not the relative one. So those are the two differences here between our submission and when pastors and priests say faith and logic are two different things. We're saying that you will use your logic to verify that this is your Lord, this is his book, these are his commands. Afterwards, you still use your logic, and no one will ask you to give up that common human logic or absolute logic. But with regard to your individual logic, you will be reminded to be modest. Understand your limitations as a human being, and be modest. Don't be too arrogant, because you don't understand everything. And like I said, 1,000 years ago, if you were to talk to people about going to the moon, they would have thought you're crazy. Now, if you talk to the people about something that may happen 1,000 years from now, they also may think that you're crazy. Had there been more time, I thought, and I did communicate this to Brother Hamza, I thought that to really, really concentrate on one argument, which is the beginning of the universe, and that the universe does not have a beginning, and to sort of base the argument on the cosmological sort of consensus now that this universe did have a beginning. It's an argument that this cosmological consensus that the universe did have a beginning has to all do with the Big Bang theory, which is from the second half of the 20th century. Therefore, what did people do before this? Before the cosmologists agree that the universe did have a beginning. The idea here is, and he tried to get away from it, and he was quite unsuccessful. Dan Barker said that, that does not really cause us any trouble. The universe did have a beginning, yet the universe is one thing and the cosmos is a different thing, so that's playing with words. So he wants to say that before this universe, there was another universe, and this universe came from the other universe, and that universe came from the other universe, which is, again, the infinite regressive causes that will lead to nothingness. Because if you have infinite regressive causes, you will never have an effect. Okay. You know what this is the baseball parable that Hamza gave. if you need to take, in order for you to pitch the ball, if you need to take a permission from me and I need to take a permission from him and he needs to take a permission from another one and so on, infinitely, you will never pitch the ball because it's infinite regressive causes. But at any rate, there is an important issue here, is that you don't center your argument around one scientific fact. Because the scientists, they do have, there could be another theory that could, a scientific fact will never contradict a clear text from the Quran or Sunnah. But scientific facts are also mixed with a lot of scientific theories. And then when you get into the realm of scientific theories that are not proven, then you get in trouble. You get in trouble. He said that it doesn't cause us a problem. This universe had a beginning, but there was another universe before it. So basically, the Big Bang Theory should not cause a problem to atheists, Dan Barker said. Any reasonable atheist would understand that it does cause a problem. Antony Flew, which is one of the greatest atheist philosophers, did say that confession is good for the soul, and I have to admit that the cosmological consensus that the universe had a beginning embarrasses any atheist. So Antony Flew got embarrassed at a moment of honesty. Yet this fellow, there's nothing embarrassing. It's just like a bulldozer. Because if you're really not gonna be understanding and sensible, you will just run over any argument. The issue here is, it is not, as he said, we disagree over a beginningless thing. He said that this universe, there was another universe, and there was another universe before it, and so on. And he said, you guys say nothing comes out of nothing. You guys say nothing comes out of nothing, right?
Yes.
Which means that you guys don't believe in a beginningless thing, which is completely ridiculous. Because we say that the beginningless thing did not come out of anything. We're saying that this universe apparently is in need of a maker. This universe is in need of a maker, right? It looks like it is in need of a maker. This maker cannot be from within it. Nobody in this universe, even human beings that seem to subjugate it and control it and do all of this stuff, no one seems to be able to create a fly, even those human beings. So this universe is in need of a maker. We did not say that there is nothing that is beginningless, because God is beginningless. Now, the idea is that his argument would be, but who created God? So he's trying to say that our dilemma is just like your dilemma. You're saying to me the universe could not have just existed by itself. I am saying to you, your God that you're claiming to have created this universe could have just not existed by itself. Your dilemma is just equal to our dilemma. What's the answer to this? Yeah.
Yeah, like you haven't seen God. Well, God doesn't need to be created, and
That is a good one. Because we know by examination of this universe that it is in need of a maker. Have you examined God to say that he is in need of a maker? That's one. What's the other one? We know, but now in this universe for sure, we know that everything in this universe needs a maker, right? So, but that is through examination. Have you examined God to know that he does need a maker? That is one. What's the other one?
Basic reconciliation is comparing the creator by the matchstick or by the metrics that you use for the creation. So he's taking he's
It is the same argument that we're saying, that the creation, the standards that apply to the creation will not apply to the creator. And since we have examined this universe and know that it is created, we're saying that it has to have a maker. But we have not examined the maker to say that he is in need of a maker. So that's the other one. But why can't you say that this universe had a beginning and you say it needed a maker? Another universe made it. And that other universe he did not examine. So you can't tell that it does not need a creator. Make sense? Another universe made it.
That's the infinite regression.
No, he will say that other universe that made it is beginningless.
Universe is not an intellectual thing.
It does not think to create.
It's a bunch of things. It's not one thing.
Okay, you're getting close. To sharpen the argument, you say that causes lead to their effect through one of two ways: natural flow or willful action. Natural flow or willful action. If causes lead to their effects by natural flow or willful action, and let's say that this effect, which is this universe, came from its cause through natural flow, then that means what? It means that the other universe has to be willful. Has to be willful. Why? Because you are willful. Like you have willpower. You are willful. You have you choose. I choose to. By Allah's permission, I choose to put this down on the table. Choose to put it here. To bring it back there. So I'm, endowed with choice. Willful agent. So if I cannot be created by an unwillful agent, because if the agent that brought me to existence does not have a will, cannot give me a will. Right? If he doesn't have a will, cannot give me will, because will does not come from nothing. So this willfulness means that the Supreme Being that brought this universe that is here into existence has to be willful. And not only that he has to be willful, he has to be great and magnificent to bring all this into existence, to create all of this. Beyond our imagination, because you can't even figure out how your intestines work. Not the best GI doctor in the world knows the real works inside. So that has to be great and magnificent and willful. But keep in mind, are you a purposeful being or not? You are a purposeful being, right? Being purposeful, the one who made you must be purposeful. And if the one who made you is purposeful, and you are purposeful, and he made you, he must, if he's wise, and it is natural that he is wise because of the magnificence of his creation, he must communicate the purpose to you, the purpose of making a purposeful being. Therefore, the being that brought this into effect, this universe that we know into effect, must be willful, must be magnificent, must be purposeful. And that purposeful part is important because that would answer the Gnostics. If you are purposeful, your maker must be purposeful because he gave you purpose. And he could have not given you purpose had he not had purpose. So if you're purposeful, he must be purposeful, and if he is purposeful and wise, he must communicate the purpose to you. There must be a way for him to communicate the purpose to you. And since no one speaks to him directly, there has to be a messenger, because no one claimed to speak to him directly. So there has to be a messenger. So that is an important part to answer the Gnostics, because if you, the point here is not to get them all the way to the existence of a creator, because now you'll leave him agnostic. The point is to prove to him that the creator must also have a purpose that he must have communicated to you, since you are a purposeful being. So the other one is, if causes lead to their effects by natural flow or willful action, if it is what natural flow, it has to be rhythmic. It has to be rhythmic, right? The randomicity of this universe is an indication on the willfulness of the creator. Because April 23rd, 2010 should be like April 23rd, 2011. Because that is a full circle. Someone can tell you, whoever told you that there is not a longer periods of rhythmicity, like every 1,000 years things recur. But now, April 23rd this year, April 23rd last year, that is basically a full unit, complete circle, 100, 360 degrees. Therefore, if this universe is coming from its cause by natural flow, then it has to be rhythmic. April 23rd today must be like April 23rd next year. Same weather, same everything. Completely rhythmic, because it's coming through natural flow. The randomicity, arrhythmicity, lack of rhythm, indicates willful action that makes April 23rd next year different from this year and unpredictable. And no matter how much you try to predict it, it will still be unpredictable. You will still make mistakes. You will still, no meteorologist will be 100% perfect. They even give you the 5-day forecast and they can't really get it 100%. So that is an argument that you should also feature. The randomicity, the arithmicity of the universe. So that plus the other argument about we're not disagreeing with you on a beginningless thing. We do agree on a beginningless thing. Yet, what is the nature of the beginningless thing? That is the argument here. So forget about, we have the universe, the cosmos, the universe, another universe brought this universe into existence. Forget about all of this. We're talking about the maker now, the cause of this effect that we see in front of ourselves, and we know for sure that it must be caused by something else. The cause, the maker. Is the cause or the maker willful or not? Purposeful or not? And if you agree with me that the cause, which is the maker, is a willful, purposeful agent, then you have agreed with me that that cause is God. Because now you're agreeing on a willful, purposeful agent creating this universe. That's God. And if you say that it is purposeful, then God must have communicated the purpose to us, because we are purposeful beings. Everybody knows that we are purposeful beings. So he must have communicated the purpose to us. That means he must have sent messengers. And then you take him down the list of religions, Eastern philosophies, paganism, and the three religions, so-called Abrahamic, and then we get paganism out. Hopefully you know how to get paganism out. Otherwise you'll be in trouble, really. Eastern philosophies, they can be easily ruled out because Eastern philosophies do not really address any of that. They're just philosophies. They are not religions. They are not answering any existential questions. They are not talking to you about, who created and what are we here for and what is happening. They're just basic philosophy, human philosophy, like someone who's contemplative, sat down and thought about certain things and certain values and morals and so on, communicated them to others. Some of them are good, that's fine, but they're not religions. They don't answer existential questions. And in order for you to be a religion, you have to answer the most important existential questions. Who made this? Why, or who brought us here? Why? And where are we going thereafter? So you get the Eastern religions out, and then you will have three: Orthodox, Judaism. Judaism, the door is not open in the first place, because you're Jew if you're born to a Jewish mother. So you're not invited, so that will save you a lot of time there. Then you're down to do Christianity and Islam. And you should be very clever at, the final game, final match. So the other thing that we have, just a take-home message is, don't wait on one particular argument, roll out so many. Because the people in the audience, keep in mind, what I said now about purposeful and willful, some of you here, and this is not an offense, but some of you here did not get it. And that is just natural. A natural expectation that when you speak to any audience, understand that they're not going to understand everything you said. Because of your limitation and their limitation. You're limited in the sense that you cannot get the argument across to all people within a limited time, despite their variant IQs, despite their variant backgrounds and so on. It's just a natural thing. It's just like a given. Therefore, when you go to debate with someone, don't waste too long on one argument. In other words, those people, we wanted to have made them left to that room with 10 of the strongest proofs on the Prophet's prophethood. You get it in the middle. You roll them out quickly, but stress them so that they leave with those ideas in their minds. They take home something that they may benefit from afterwards. That's, yeah.
How would you switch from argument to argument?
Switching is extremely important. You see Sayyidina Ibrahim, when the man said, I also do this, I give life and death. إذ قال إبراهيم ربي الذي يحيي ويميت قال أنا أحيي الملك said to Ibrahim أنا أحيي وأميت قال إبراهيم فإن الله يأتي بالشمس من المشرق فأتي بها من المغرب. Okay, so Ibrahim said to the king that my Lord gives life and death. And the king said to Ibrahim, I also give life and death. So Ibrahim said to the king, my Lord brings the sun from the east, you bring it from the west then. Was the argument of the king a valid argument? No. What was the argument of the king? The argument of the king is that he gets a couple of people from the prison. He says to his soldiers, let him live and kill him to the other one. So he gave life and death. The king thought that this is given life and death. Ibrahim was not talking about this, yet Ibrahim figured that some of those people in the audience will be retarded enough to believe the king. Or believe this like, flimsy argument of the king. So he switched arguments. He did not really waste time on this argument to tell him, but you don't understand. This is not really giving life to that fellow. Giving life is to give him life from death, from nothingness, to bring him to existence. But Ibrahim completely switched the argument into a completely different direction. And that's how it depends on whether you think your current argument, is very strong and very powerful. Emphasize it a little more. If you think that the people are responding well, look in the eyes. If you think that the eyes are bright and people are responding well, emphasize it more. If you think that the people are, then switch quickly, because it is really no point to prove that this one particular argument is correct. Because ultimately, sincerity means that you're working for the ultimate purpose. And the ultimate purpose could never be proving this one particular argument to be correct. It is to just give those people guidance. Yes. And,
you might have even answered this here, but he brought an ayah from the Quran. He said that he thought that there was an ayah in the Quran that talked about hellfire being, of a certain duration, was created at a certain point. As far as the skies and the earth, something like that. He brought an ayah from the Quran. And I think Brother Hamza couldn't recall at that time, he didn't give him the ayah of where it was in the Quran. Was that answered at the debate? I'm not sure if it was. But that was one of the assumptions that Dan Barker had made.
yeah, we answered it. We answered that's what we started with, that the verses in the Quran that address the Jannah and Nar could infer linguistically. There is a difference between contradiction, two verses contradicting one another, and variant interpretations, variant implications. I understand it in some way, you understand it in a different way. The language used to refer to the eternity of the hellfire in the Quran is not decisive. And that is a fact that we have to just live with, agree on. It is not decisive. Because the word khulud in Arabic is not decisive on eternity. The word abadan in Arabic is not decisive on eternity. It means a very long time. Therefore, some of the scholars, we even mentioned that this has been reported by from Umar radiallahu anhu, from Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, from Abi Hurairah radiallahu anhu, whether it is their intent to say that it is eternal or not, but reports from those companions have been quoted by the scholars in favor of the non-eternity of the hellfire. And you find scholars in the caliber of Ibn al-Qayyim going in length and proving that hellfire is not eternal. He did have some other position in some other books, yet this was his position in at least the Hadi al-Arwah and Sawaq al-Mursala. Hadi al-Arwah and Sawaq al-Mursala, and a third book in which he supported this argument that hellfire is not eternal. The issue here is the language is flexible to allow both interpretations. The mainstream position of the Ahl Sunnah is that their hellfire is eternal. That is the mainstream of the very, very vast majority of Ahl Sunnah. But when you have language that allows room for interpretation, that is a completely different story from being self-contradictory. And if you allow room for different interpretations, there is a wisdom why you're allowing this room. And we did talk a little about this. Sisters, everything's clear. Yes.
Sheikh, if you allow me just to add one suggestion, and I shall thank Indian gods for their successful activities, mashallah, all over the coincidence, but I have just a suggestion and a small comment to them that as a base, a young-based organization, and most of the audience are very young, and they don't have maybe enough knowledge to encounter such arguments from an atheist, that we focus on bringing some scholars, like example like you or Brother Hamza, just to give information and knowledge to such audience, to get them more knowledgeable about our deen, rather than hearing a misconception or doubtful maybe thoughts from him, which is irrational actually arguments that didn't make sense, but to some maybe young people, they think, oh, he did a point. That I have a suggestion that not to have them coming, but rather than have a lot of
If I may allow myself to answer on behalf of the brothers from the building blocks, the thing is, we did not really concoct this idea of having a debate with an atheist group. The atheist group approached one of the members, and the member brought it up, and since they approached us Muslims, we figured that it may not be a bad idea to bring someone from us to talk to them, if they can bring us a great audience. And whenever we have conferences of our own, how many non-Muslims show up? 5, 10, 15, 20. So we were hopeful that this, if they organize it, that more non-Muslims will show up. It will be a dawah opportunity. The initial planning was to not invite the Muslim public. But I don't know, once it goes beyond like 2 people, actually once it goes beyond 1 person, in fact.
If you allow me, I wasn't there, but I seen it online.
No, I know. That's why when I started this talk, I said that the one lesson we learned for the future is to make it less known to people. And I did say that you don't really want to expose yourself to cold air and say, I'm not going to get a flu, because you may get the flu, and it's not a smart thing to go out in the cold naked and say, I will not get a flu. But some of the dua that are being groomed to be debaters may benefit from attending. So it should be limited to the debater and people who will benefit by sharpening their skills in debate to be present, but not for the public. It is really not prescribed by the mainstream scholars of the past or present that you expose yourself to misconceptions and shubuhat and say, I'm strong. In fact, the Prophet ﷺ warned us that a man will go out to Masih al-Dajjal thinking that he is a believer and that he can handle the temptation of Masih al-Dajjal and be persuaded by Masih al-Dajjal or tempted away from his deen by al-Masih al-Dajjal. So there is no point in exposing yourself to danger to say, I'm strong.
On the same note, how about like watching Ahmed Gita's debates and saying Zakir Naik and all those popular debates?
I think that particularly, debates with Christians are much safer than atheists. The arguments Christians make are... So they're much safer. I mean, not for each and every individual, but for a lot more people than a debate with an atheist. Atheists can bring up stronger arguments than Christians. Yeah, so subhanakallah,